Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are, whatever you're doing, and welcome to another episode of Stat Me Up for Anfield Index. It's been a decent week, hasn't it? We are top of every table you care to mention. We beat Lille, who are a good team in the Champions League. When you look at the league table and the results they've got so far, do the stats bear it out? And also, we're going to look at Ipswich. What are we looking for this weekend? And here to join me as ever to bring the stats from somewhere 8,000 times warmer than I am right now is Barts. Go on, just make us hate you even more, Barts. What are we talking about right now?
I mean, it's been a bit wet today, so a little reminder of the UK, but still hot, but just raining. But we need the rain. We're on water alert, so we can't have a shower in between certain times and that. So yeah, that's it. There you go.
My heart would bleed for you if we weren't in the middle of a red weather warning where I am, just outside of Edinburgh. The other half. Yeah, different for each person. But let's not digress any further, Bart. I'm intrigued for this one because Lille, and the eye test told me that we dominated. We were better second half, no two ways about it. The 10 men for Lille makes a difference. We know that. However, 10 men, one goes off the pitch, Mandy departs, and Liverpool just switch off completely and concede a sloppy goal. But they were well worth their win. That's what the eye test told me. However, what are these stats going to tell us from field tilt and all the rest is normal?
I mean, top level, is it a 55-45 possession game in our favour? Touches 750 versus their 640, rounded it down. So we shaded that. Penalty box touches 24-16. That's a bit low for us, to be fair. We've been in around the 30 mark the last few games, so that's not a concern. I'm just saying it gives you a little indication of some of the phases of the game were quite like Connor to Konza to Van Dijk to Costas to back again. They were playing it around the line quite a bit, which basically means you're not going to get a penalty box touch every couple of minutes, which is what we were doing in previous games. So field tilt 64-35 roughly, rounding out in and about that shows a pretty good dominance. Total shots 13-4, yeah, okay. On target 7 versus 1. So yeah, I suppose in terms of output, 5 big chances to 0. That's another big factor we have. 1 goal to 2, all right. We kept them under half an XG, which is decent, and we were nearly up 2.5 to 2.25. Threat conversion was probably the first time in about 4 games we've gone above 100 for the whole game. We've done it in phases in other games, but this is the first time we've managed to tick that threat to XG back to being our normal kind of level around 120. So this is 1, 2, 3. So that's another positive step. The last 3 games have been positive little steps to get us back to where we need to be. Passing rate for us, what we got, 89%. That's pretty high for us. We're normally in around 85, and they were tidy at around 88. So a little quirk for you as well. We talk about PPDO, which is basically a measure of a ratio between the quality of your shots and what you scored, and the quality of their shots and what they scored, if you like. So because they only had 1 shot, 1 goal, our defensive video ranked really poorly because we considered the only shot on target, right? Even though we scored 2 from 7. So it's a little quirk in some of the metrics that people like me laugh at. Whatever's thinking, what the hell are you talking about? But anyway, there you go. If we look at, conversely, they end up with a PPDO of 1,700 when the average is about 1,000. So it kind of looks like they had an amazing game, but it's purely because they score with their own shot on target. If we look at the first half, second half splits, as we would talk about, I know you mentioned in a preamble, and I would largely probably agree with it on the eye test, but we actually had less possession in the second half, only by a smidge, but we had less possession. The field tilt, we were more dominant. We were nearly 70-30 rather than 60-40 in the first half, so we were in there half more, but I had the ball slightly less. We did have more shots, 8-5. They had more shots as well, though, just not on target. 6-yard box shots. Nobody had any 6-yard box shots that were onside. Big chances, we created 2 in the second half. They obviously created none all game, so that kind of matters. XG, we created more in the first half than the second, which is probably about right if you look at some of the chances we didn't convert in the first half.
Yeah.
And our threat conversion was better in the first half than the second half. So, yeah, I think there's a bit of a we got into a state where we were happy. Home lead here, you can see we kind of tried to shut them down as we normally would do. 0.46 is actually letting them have quite a bit when we were in the lead. But when it was a draw game, we let them have nothing. I mean, 0.03% XG is literally nothing in a drawn state. It wasn't until we got in the lead that we let them really have anything. If you look at Monte Carlo's, I heard some other broadcaster suggesting that this was a lucky win for Liverpool. I'd love to know where he got that from, because we were 82% to win the game, and by all accounts, 2-0 was a fair scoreline, 19% of the time. So, yeah, I think dominant is probably stretching it. I would say controlled.
Yeah.
Controlled, European. There was a lot of the passing between the back line, just keeping it ticking over and then choosing our moment. And bar for a bit of sloppy play down the right. It's amazing how we can see similar goals. It doesn't matter if Trent's playing or not. Just a little note for people to have some sort of agenda. But it was the same right side goal that we've considered at other times. Yeah, it was one of them pass maps. The thing to note on these, which I know, which you might notice when you look at him, is the distance between the back four. Right, the back four is really heavy lines. If I blow this up. So this is really heavy, which suggests a lot of passes between the back four in a U, right? Traditional U as well. None of this, no right back coming here and inverting, but a load of passes between that and then back to Ali. That is us recycling the ball back. But 38 is Gravenberch. His average position on the ball, to say, is actually in front of the 2-8s. And he's actually level with our nominal 9, Nunez, and ahead of Diaz. So, yeah, it's quite a different pass map, if I was being honest with you. Suggests to me they had a fairly decent defensive structure, which they did, and kept us out of areas. But, yeah, there's a large distance as well between our midfield line and our defensive line. Generally, our midfielders line up around here. So they're not too, we bring the back four up. You know, we can move the play on further up. But we clearly haven't been able to do that. So we still keep depth in our units. And otherwise it's very difficult to pass. But in doing so, there's a large gap between our defence and our midfield. So, yeah, that's an interesting one. Something that just hadn't seen a side cause us to do that much. I mean, their pass map doesn't really show a lot. It's deep, trying to build through the wingers or into the target man. But again, a lot of cycling of possession down their defensive back four. Low colour means low pass success. So they were kind of giving it away a little bit, but second half a lot better for them, stronger. So yeah, that's passing. If we look at threat, what do we do? So first half, second half, that probably does give a better indication of what you were saying in terms of the eyeball. First half, low level was a bit harsh, but there's not a lot of heat there in terms of threat creation. We were countering a bit. Whereas second half, you can see we were building things up. We didn't convert as a higher rate. If you look at our second half threat to XG, it was a lower rate in the first half. So yeah, that's an interesting one. They deeper in the first half, and then second half they tried to come out a little bit, but again, their little bit of coming out is just literally moving up one box. So rather than being in their complete defensive third, they're kind of half and half. So yeah, and off the ball for us, this is going to be a bit sporadic because we didn't do a lot off the ball work. But second half, we targeted both fullbacks, their 6 and the 2-8s, whereas first half, we generally just probably dealt with their attacks, even when they did happen. So we were largely targeting their right winger and their right centre half first half. So a little bit of changing in the philosophy. And in the first half, when we got it, we were trying to find Mo here, 11. So we're trying to win the ball and get it to Mo as quick as possible, which, again, you could see with the goal having from that way and that kind of direction. Whereas second half, we were actually trying to build a bit, but there's not as many balls in behind And if we go and look at our past analysis, looking at what we did in zone 14. So I said the previous 2 games, we'd started to reutilize the half space in the zone 14s. But because of what Lille did, you'll see here, this is back to like United, Fulham-esque performances where we're really not getting into the areas we'd got used to in the last 2 games and to great effect. So, yeah, I would say a controlled performance. We probably did what we wanted to do. We got the win. We got out of it largely unaffected by any sort of injuries or anything, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah, it's probably a good phrase for it, controlled rather than dominant, as we've talked about in recent performances. But as you said, an uptick in a lot of the stats, even if the dominance in the second half maybe didn't show on the stats, but in the areas that you mentioned about, so that's important to call out. And you mentioned the main man. He broke records. He was the official man of the match. He's now into the top 10 Champions League scorers of all time, tied with Thierry Henry. You could say joint 9th place if you want to phrase it that way. How good were Mo Salah's metrics in this one?
So Mo Salah what did he have? He had 96 touches of the ball, which is second high, joint highest. He had 12 minutes. He had a lot of touches of the ball. In terms of EPB production, it was about 10%, which is a little bit low for him, but the top man was Costas. So that shows you some of the balls he was playing. Pass completion rate 75%. That's good for someone who's taking risks. XG 1.6, sorry. Post shot 1.38. So he's turning a lot of his chances better, but not by the full amount. XG 0.2, which is second highest in the team to Costas. So that's a good 0.27 XA. So that's some of the chances he laid on for Nunes later on the game, and Chiesa, some good balls. So off the ball, if we have a look there. So most Salah's touches, 43. Not as many as our back 4. As I said, the back 4 were largely passing to each other. Van Dijk and Konza over 100 touches each. Yeah, probably tells you a little bit of the story of the game, to be honest with you. Carries down. Diaz was doing a lot of carrying, but Diaz does generally carry the ball more. But if we look at progressive carries, 7-11, not too bad. Nunes having a good game in terms of progressing the ball from a carry. Duels, Mo lost all of his duels, and his aerials didn't take part in any. So, I would suggest it's probably penalty box touches. He had 9, which is the best of any forward. So that's good. If you get Mo in the box a lot near that 10 mark, generally good things happen. I would say it's a solid performance for him. I think he's probably needed that because he'd had a few. If you look at his work and where his far shots, he's above the normal average, and he's probably in and around the average for the rest of it. But there's not. I think it's fair to say none of the front line were hugely stand out to compete with Mo, if you know what I mean. Sometimes goals win you matches, and he created another opportunity. So, and the other one where I can't really pings it out from the back, and he takes a touch, beats the man, and then I think it's about 44 minutes or something, and then slots it just wide the first half. That is a passage of play that was truly phenomenal. Deserved a goal for that one. But I also picked out Costas just as an alternative. I thought he outperformed all his metrics from left back, which you can see here on the bigger plot. So he's either exceeded or in line with, and he's created more threat from left back than we've seen some of our left backs do, should we say. So I thought that was a good performance, particularly as I think Connor largely stayed as being a fullback, if you get what I mean, rather than he still made the forward runs. But Connor didn't really show up on that. He's won his aerials and his duels, but in terms of the attacking side of his game, he's not exceeded. So sort of gave you maybe a little indication of things to come, where the left back becomes slightly more threat creation than the right, as we traditionally have now when Trent plays. But I thought Mo played well, but I also thought, looking at the stats profiles, Costas is probably had a pretty decent game as well, to be fair.
Yeah, is an interesting one, and there's a question here, and I don't know if we'll be able to answer it. It might be one to take away, but Helio Mattis has put there theory regarding Nunes that each time he's on the pitch, the room that Salah operates in gets widening. And to be fair, Bart, Salah has spoken about his connection with Nunes. Those are his words before as well, and the way they operate together. Is that hard to prove? A partnership, shall we say? Is that even possible?
I mean, it's quite difficult to distinguish. I mean, if you look at the areas in which they were on the ball, should we say, which is kind of in the area you're asking about here. So Nunes is operating half. This is this area here. This is Nunes. He's operating here, so he's not overlapping with Mo. But to say that his previous partners haven't given him space, if we go back to Brentford and we just wait for the page to load, this is great radio, people, I know. But if we scroll down, right, so if we look at the areas here, wow. Mo's higher and arguably slightly closer to goal at Brentford, and there is no one really anywhere near him. So I'm not sure that kind of marks out. I mean, because they're not overlapping, but they are literally in the next two zones, whereas Mo is largely left on his own because Trent isn't going to go fast in there. Dom doesn't. So Mo's left to kind of dominate here. He is wider. He's wider and higher, though. So I'll have to look into that. I don't think that is true, though. The Nunes to XG, I don't think either of them create a lot of XG for Mo, but I would double check for you on another show on the next question there. So, yeah. I think that the key man for creating XG or turning threat into XG for Mo is Trent. Always has been. There's not really, he creates XG and chances for others, but now Bobby's gone. There isn't really someone in the front line that does the reverse for him. Cody's done it a couple of times with trying to do the Mo ball from the left hand side that Mo does to the right to him. But generally speaking, if you want someone to create chances for Mo, it's Trent.
Interesting. That question's on the spot. We can't get him down tonight, can we? And it is a follow-up pod we'll be doing as well around the attack. So keep your eyes peeled for that, everyone. And I suppose back to this game against Lille. But the one thing that everyone was talking about, and it's been the hot topic recently, Harvey Elliott, what's the future? Where do people see him? All these types of things. Now, in this game against Lille, he comes on after 45 minutes and he has a huge impact. That's what the eye test see. It seems to knit everything together. Is that true on the stats?
I have to be honest with you. If you compare who he came on for, right? Harvey, he came on for Curtis, right? I've got that right, haven't I? I've not just lost the plot. Harvey has less on ball time than Curtis, right? So that's less of our possession than Curtis in the same amount of minutes. What does he do along here? We've got creates more XG, fair, does score, creates better post shot. That's because the shot he took was deflected and ended up going in the top corner, which the keeper's going to get nowhere near. And that's not discredit. I'm just trying to explain why that stat is that high, considering he only took one shot. He did create more XT than Jones, which, that's a positive. We look at attempted passes, about the same, 21 versus 24. He's got an 87% pass rate. CJ's 87. So, again, not a lot in it. Jones gets an assist. Jones gets a key pass. Harvey doesn't. Long balls, which isn't Harvey's game. So he's got 4. Final third passes. Harvey. This is where Harvey excels. 9 final third passes out of his 21 attempted versus CJ's 2 out of his 24 attempted. So he's got a higher percentage of his, when he's in that little pocket, his balls into the danger, the old classic danger zone, but into the box. He's got 9 of those, which is an outstanding stat. How many of those progressive? Well, for Harvey, none of those are going to be progressive because he's already closer to the goal than 20 yards, is what I measure a progressive pass to be. So it's going to be very hard for Harvey to get those. And then penalty box touches. How many passes does he actually make when he's in the box? Which again is a really good indicator. He's got 2. So that's more than CJ. So there are some elements where you could go, yeah, okay, I can see that. He's received 9 progressive passes, again, because he's higher up the pitch, right? Whereas CJ's lower. But he's receiving successes, it's 3% below CJ. So I think the only thing I would say is it doesn't necessarily create more threat. So yes, he's done those things. And that could be because of the player he's been feeding into, or because of the players around him, those kind of things. It could be a manner of mechanisms, but playing it into the area at that higher volume of percentage of passes is a good thing, and is a very good sign for him. And that is exactly what Elliott's good at. Off the ball, it's going to be harsh on him because he's just not. He himself says physicality is not his game. He's got 0% for any of the duels. Whereas CJ's actually got. I mean, CJ's not done great, 25%, but yeah, it shows you where it is. I think probably if I can work out why that view is there, I would suggest from looking at data where CJ took his touches versus where Harvey took his touches. So CJ took 69% of his touches in the middle third, whereas Harvey took 46 and 43. So 43 of them are in the final third, right? So what you're probably seeing, and this isn't wrong, is that Harvey did a very similar job to CJ, just near a goal and made more balls into the box. So therefore, he had a greater impact, but he might not have ticked through on the stats because of the players around him and those and other impacts. But in terms of just being higher up the ball, higher up the pitch, would have helped us, would have occupied, would have freed up other players because they've got to worry about this little kid on the edge of the box ticking the ball around. Whereas previously, CJ's back playing out the sort of the Ginny role, basically, the 6, getting it, not losing it, and playing it. So, I could say from a positional sense that Harvey had an impact on the game, even if the stats don't really show a great difference between the 2 players, if that answers your question.
Yeah, it is interesting. To be fair, you've said it before. We talk about the areas of the pitch, the way we divide them up, the way we talk about that zone 14 so often. That's where Harvey comes alive, isn't it? Realistically, that's the difference between him and CJ. You sacrifice that physicality element to get Harvey in those areas where he can tick it, slide a ball down the channel and make stuff happen. That's what it comes down to, really, doesn't it?
Yeah, definitely. And I think that Harvey has to come on. We're talking about game state. I don't think Harvey can start a hustle-bustle game. I still don't believe that. I think there's games, there's a state of a game that he has to come on for. The way Lille had set up, they're a player down, which also means it's easier for Harvey to find pockets of space to operate because he's unlikely to be man-marked. Whereas they're going to mark everybody else up. So I think, and equally, he comes on, when he comes in that second half, that last period of the game, the tank energy levels of the Oppo are a little bit lower. So again, his physicality, which he talks about, it doesn't come up as a problem as much. So I think there's elements there. And I think Harvey can have an impact. And I think looking back and reflecting, that's probably a mistake or a decision I think Slot might change is things like United, Forest, Elliott might have been put really optimal to bring on in those last dying seconds rather than trying to keep hitting them with gas, pace and movement, which is what we did with the subs. A little bit more insecurities in those areas might have enabled us to get a better chance, which happened at Brentford. So, I think there's an element of truth in there. We might see that now going on. Do I think Harvey's ever going to start for Liverpool on the slot in a meaningful game? No. And you can probably get me to eat my hat if that happens, but I just don't see it. I just think the physicality that Slot demands of his midfield three in the majority of starting in Premier League games, Harvey, by his own admission, hasn't got it.
Yeah. And to be fair, as people will say, because we always like to balance it when we look at the stats, maybe that's not what he's there for slot for. You used the word a few times that stuck with me: impact and game state. It's when the opposition start to tire. When you need something, Harvey is probably the one that's starting to earn the trust of Slot. And if we talk about ultimate stats, as you always do, Bart, a pre-assist, an assist, and now a goal in the last two.
Yeah.
Will just move the needle a little bit on that, won't it, you'd think?
Yeah, definitely.
Will be interesting to see. So there you go, people. Don't say we don't give you value for money. You got a full Harvey Elliott discussion. And we'll keep this short, but obviously it's one that's causing a bit of drama across Anfield Index, and everyone's got an opinion. Ryan Gravenberch. Now, people have used the analogy, obviously, like flogging the dead horse, I heard the other night, and he has played a lot of minutes. There's zero debate about Gravenberch. People are starting to say, because he's tired, his impact is going. The Raw boys, so Trev and Dave, I've shouted out to them. They had a big discussion on him the other night as well. People had their thoughts on that. What do the stats say on the 45 for Ryan Gravenberch in this one?
I mean, considering it, okay, there's a thing called opportunity, right? If the opposition is only going to have one shot on target and about 4 shots in target, like there's minimal attacking outlet, right? And they're also going to target specific areas to attack, not the center of the pitch. It's quite difficult to put in a performance, yeah, if you're in controlling the area of the pitch. So that's just one caveat I'm just going to lay there, all right? Yeah. It's like you can't. People used to put, when we were doing the pressing quite a lot in UP, the pressing, and some games used to come out low, but we had a great game. But it's because it's opportunity. If you've got 70% possession, the opportunity for you to have a good pressing game is pretty minuscule. Yeah, you're talking about 30% of game ball time. So some of the stuff about Grav will be about opportunity to actually do the defensive side of it.
Yeah.
Having said that, he didn't compete for any aerials. He lost both ground duels he went for, right? His carries, which is generally a strong point of his, only 29% in the final third, 14% of the progressive. These are low. These are not great figures for him, right? He's normally, when he makes a carry, he does do 20 yards close to the goal. That's generally what he does. So for him to only get 14 is not great. Carries is a low down. If you look at where he's picking his touches up, 17 to 72%. 24% at the final third, and only 4 in the defensive third. As I showed you on the pass map, for me, that needs to be round the other way, because as much as his opportunity, he still has a job to do. He's still there as our 6, right? Where he was, I would expect, Dom, somebody else to be in that position, really. So, those things concern me. I mean, and then we look at on ball, 3% of our threat from him, which is a 6. He's not going to create a lot. Receiving, this is a stat that needs to be a lot higher than 73%, considering the majority of his possession comes from Verge or Konza or the goalkeeper, right?
Yeah.
It's normally unopposed. So for him to only get 73% success is a little bit concerning. 89% pass rate, yeah, okay, fair enough. It's one of the highest in the game. But what did he do with that ball? He made final third passes, so made 5 passes to the final third, only 1 progressive, and only 1 long ball. Now, that's not really his game, if you like. He normally keeps it ticking over, but he only attempted 19 passes. Considering he's the fulcrum, if you like. Even if it's just a short ball to another 8 or a fullback or firing it into the front, you'd expect that number to be higher. I mean, if we look at the last game, let me just have a quick look for comparison. I just forgot we played in Blackburn. Just grab it over here. So he made 41 passes in 45 passes in Brentford. So, yeah, it's a little bit down, if I'm being honest with you. I think probably the notable element, it doesn't help when Endo comes on, right? And has the same number of passes, same number of successes. Where did Endo occupy himself? Endo occupied himself in the middle third mainly, so less in the forward area. Endo actually attempted some duels. You think from the narrative that he won everything. He only won 29%. and didn't create any errors. So I think there's a little bit of, Endo did this, and Grav didn't, and yeah, there's a little bit of that in there. But yeah, I'm not saying it's the best of Grav's performance. I think his positioning might have been slightly out, but I think we've been saying that on UP and a few others. The positional element of being a 6 has started to wane a little bit. What's more of a concern is some of his on-ball metrics here are not as good as previous games. So yeah, the numbers are ticking up in terms of minutes. It is what we're getting in nearly into 13 games to go, something like that. It's getting into territory towards that last third of the season, if not less. You would hope they have some sort of plan to start using Endo more in meaningful minutes. I think it's one of the first games Endo's come on at 6, and the game hasn't been won, which is quite a sign from Slot. So if he starts trusting people like Elliott, people like Endo to come on and take minutes off the starting 3, that's a good place to be. It's just unfortunate it might have taken us to get to this point where players have started to come off the higher form for him to start doing that. But as long as he's learning, that's all it is. So yeah, I would say Grav, not his best game, probably. But then some of that, it might be down to opportunity. But I do think his positioning was a little bit high.
It's an interesting one. I'll be honest, when I watched the game and then I saw it afterwards, people going sort of, for various things about Gravenberch, my honest take was I didn't really notice him that much. It was just kind of one of those meh performances, like not brilliant, not terrible.
Yeah.
But it's interesting, like you say, it's become a focus. And I agree, the minutes have ticked up. I think it's fair to say on the recent pods we've talked about, and you've referenced the UP ones, we are seeing a slight tick down in certain metrics and certain things. Yeah. And also it's fair to say, as you sort of highlighted clearly there, his position did seem high a few times, as in it's difficult for them, VVD or whoever, to punch that ball, as we've said before, through to him, isn't it, in that regard? So the opportunity, the style, probably do, to be fair to the Raw, it does back up an overall picture with the data there, doesn't it, of what they said?
Yeah, 100%, because if you look at our action zones on the ball, Grav is higher up. He's in the 10 position, where ideally you want him here. You want him in this box here, so that he can get an easy ball from the centre-halves, and he's also not blocking a ball from our 2 centre-halves into the front players. So VVD is very good at punching that straight in there, so is Giroud, or doing a switch off into these areas. So Grav is almost in an area of blocking that, because he's going to bring a player in, which means the passing lane to the front isn't there. Yeah, because it's closed up. So yeah, I wouldn't say, I don't know, I haven't listened to Raw, but yeah, the data in the areas that he's playing in does suggest that his positioning in this game wasn't up to his normal standards.
Interesting. And like Bart said, will Endo get more opportunities? We don't know. We might even find out in this one, Bart. I mean, Ipswich, when you think this on paper and the home games you'd pick after a recent tough run, you would probably go quite high with this as your choice, because this sounds terrible, Ipswich fans, in case you're listening, but you have a quick scan of the squad. Liam Delap's the threat. Maybe Smodgits for a few, but it's pretty much Liam Delap to keep out. And also, I mean, we can't lie, Bart. So you know, as Roy Walker said on Catchphrase, say what you say. 43 goals shipped and 20 conceded. I mean, I don't need doctor before my name to tell best, but where I'm going to speak to a doctor is to say, understat. I mean, 43 goals shipped, Bart. Like, tell me, was this hot? Is this cold? Where are we?
So yeah, 43 goals shipped, and what people, I don't think, yeah, they should have shipped 51, right? Jeez. So they are running hot defensively, yes. So even though they've conceded nearly 2 a game, they're actually running hot. They should have conceded 51 goals. That is a remarkable stat. We've still a good chunk of games to go. That suggests that they're on course for conceding 60 odd goals. You know what I mean? That's a phenomenal rate to be conceding goals. And scoring wise, they've scored 20. They should have scored 24. So they're running cold at the other end. Not a massively I mean, 4 goals isn't massive, but they're still running a bit cold. So points wise, under stats got them. They should have got 15 points, and they've actually got 16. So they're there or thereabouts. They concede a lot of chances, as we've just seen. In terms of the XG, so against Ipswich, on average, they are shipping. I mean, City's a little bit different because they got beat 6-0, isn't it? But so that was 3 XG, but 2, 1.8, 1. They had a good game against Brighton, which is a little bit surprising. Still got beat, but I'm just saying it's a good game for them in terms of that. But if you look at largely, it's about 1.8 XG they concede, whilst they're only, I mean, the last 2 games have not even hit, just about hit 0.5 XG. So they're not creating a lot. The last game, Fulham and Chelsea, they notched 1.5 XG and above. So they're on a bit of a downward trend for that. In terms of shots conceded, that classic we always talk about, as I said, Forest and Brentford, we said that Brentford had conceded a lot, can concede a lot of shots, and they did. They conceded a record against us, which is a bit of a danger sign for a lot of Prem sides because our shot volume's gone through the roof the last 2 games. Ipswich are already conceding, what's that? That's about 15 to 20 shots a game. And the last game they conceded 10 on target, which is a pretty high amount, to be fair. And they're taking less than 10. So the last 5 games they've not got over 10 shots, and they've only gone to 5 shots on target in the last 5. So they're not basically, they're running cold at both ends for obvious reasons, or hot at the defensive end. They should be even worse, and they're running cold the other end. And they're away from home, which makes things even worse. I don't want to depress Ipswich fans though, but it's it could be a challenging day for them, should we say, up north at Anfield. 3 o'clock is probably a nice kickoff time for them, because I don't really fancy anybody coming with that record under the lights at Anfield. I think you might find a massive score, but as it's 3 o'clock, it'll be a little bit different. But no, this should be, touching some wood and more superstitious, should be a comfortable win for the Reds on Saturday.
Yeah, I mean, we will always take a win with no injuries. That's the focus at the moment. But when you are playing a side that has shipped 6 at the weekend, conceded 43 goals in the Premier League, and is hot on that, and has only scored 20, all the metrics are there. I mean, you don't want to sound horrible, but apart from Southampton, they are the team you'd pick at the moment, wouldn't you, if you were deadly honest?
Oh, 100%. It's, you want a little freshener, to just sort of chill out a bit, because our run is it's unrelenting, isn't it? To be honest with you, the way with our schedule at the moment. I mean, after Ipswich, we go away to PSV, and then we've got Bournemouth. So although we've now done the job in Europe, PSV he isn't going to want to lose that game slot. So it'd be tricky to see what he does. But Bournemouth's the one that any rest we can start getting before the Bournemouth game, that's a massive game for me, because I think Arsenal play City that day as well. Arsenal are away at Wolves on Saturday, which could be tricky for them, could not be, depends which Wolves turn up.
Yeah,
I think they've got City coming up. So this period here in terms of the Premier League is really one you want to be kind of just chilling out a bit, trying to save energy, till we finish our Premier League campaign for a moment at Bournemouth, and then we hit 2 cup games, and then we've got Everton on the bounce. So this is, as you said, is an ideal time for us to, I don't think you'll rotate because it's the Premier League, but get the job done early, get into that garbage time game state, and then just utilise the subs, use all 5 subs, which you started to do in previous games, which is good. Rotate the minutes out, and then I would hope that he'd do another 3-4 changes for PSV like he did for Lille. And then we come into Bournemouth fresh, on form, playing well, because our process will hopefully have carried on improving. and we do the business against Bournemouth, because that to me is an absolutely critical game in this run.
Yeah, it does look it when you lay it out that way. There are games that, let's be honest, are dead rubber. There are some games that are important. Bournemouth's just absolutely massive. There's no two ways about it. So if Ipswich can keep running those stats as they are, that would be greatly appreciated for the weekend. But there we are. There's method in the discussion around Ryan Gravenberch and a slight drop in metrics. There's also Harvey Elliott shining closer to the box, maybe not in the overall physicality. And there's definitely method in hope that we might just put a few past Ipswich this weekend. But we will see what Saturday at 3 o'clock brings. So all it ever leaves me to say, Bart, for the time, the insight, and for giving us the stats, it is much appreciated.
More than welcome, anytime.
And ladies and gents, that was me up for Anfield